Help! The cry cut through the noise of traffic like broken glass. He heard it while standing in the crowd, waiting for the green light. The voice burst from beneath the wheels of a truck rolling backward. Everything happened in a second. His briefcase slipped onto the asphalt, spilling open, papers scattering under people's feet. He knew if he bent to collect them, he would be late forever. If he left them, he might lose everything he had worked for. And yet he jumped forward, hearing only his own breath and the screams around him. He had no idea he was about to save not only someone else, but himself. The truck's tires screeched, people shouted in panic, and his legs seemed to move faster than his mind. He didn't think about the interview, about his son's breakfast waiting at home, about the hungry look in his boy's eyes that morning. He only saw a hand, a woman's hand, trembling in the shadow of metal. Move! Someone yelled, but no one else moved. Phones rose, screens flashed, but no one stepped closer. The city always froze in moments like this, everyone watching, no one acting. His shoulder slammed against the cold steel of the bumper, his palms scraping the asphalt as he pulled. "Hold on," he shouted, though he wasn't sure if she heard him. For a second, the world shrank to the grip of his fingers locking around hers. The weight was heavier than he imagined. His chest burned. The truck groaned, metal against metal, still rolling back. And in that insane blur he noticed the details: polished nails on her hand, a bracelet snapped halfway, strands of hair across her face as she struggled to lift her head. "Pull," she gasped, her voice breaking. Adrenaline tore through him. With one last heave, he dragged her clear just as the truck slammed against the curb with a bone-shaking crash. Sparks flew, shouts erupted, and for a heartbeat the city went silent. They fell onto the pavement together, breathless. Her hair covered half her face, but her eyes, wide, alive, terrified, locked with his. She wanted to say something but couldn't. "Are you hurt?" he panted. Before she answered, the crowd swarmed in. Questions, accusations, curses flew over them. "Who's driving? Is she okay? Call the police." Someone lifted his scattered papers with a smirk. "Hey man, you dropped your life." He turned his head, and froze. Half his resume pages were already crumpled, wet with dirty rainwater. The one sheet that mattered most, the letter of recommendation, lay under the tire of the truck, ink smearing. His pulse hammered in his ears. He wanted to grab it, save at least one piece of his fragile hope. But her hand clung to his arm, shaking. "Don't leave me," she whispered, so quietly only he could hear. Sirens wailed in the distance. People backed away. Someone shouted, the driver ran off. Another voice, "She almost got killed." The chaos grew louder, thicker, like smoke filling the street. And right there, in the middle of broken papers and broken breath, he realized, whatever had just begun was far bigger than an interview. The sirens grew louder, slicing through the chaos. People began pulling out their phones, some filming, others shouting into them. He tightened his grip on the woman's arm, helping her sit up. She was trembling, her face pale, yet her eyes burned with a strange clarity. "You," she tried to speak, but coughed. "Don't move," he said quickly. "You could be hurt." "I'm fine," she snapped back, voice still weak but laced with authority. Then, softer, almost only to herself, "I can't be seen here." Her words struck him. Couldn't be seen. What did that mean? He glanced around, dozens of strangers already recording, police minutes away. Whoever she was, anonymity was no longer an option. One man shoved his way closer, waving a phone. "Hey hero, what's your name? This'll go viral, man." The stranger grinned, pointing the camera at him. "I don't," he started, but the woman squeezed his wrist, hard. "Don't say it," she whispered, her nails digging into his skin. Her urgency was sharper than fear. Before he could respond, 2 uniforms burst through the crowd. "Step back. Everyone back." A police officer crouched beside them. "Are you injured?" "She's fine," he said, though his own knees were still shaking. The woman pushed his arm away, straightened herself, and in one motion stood. Her balance faltered for an instant, but then she pulled her coat tightly around her, chin lifted. The crowd parted as if sensing her command. "Ma'am, we need your statement," one officer began. Later, she cut him off, her tone firm, practiced, almost familiar. She turned to him, locking eyes. "Come with me." "What?" He blinked, still half in shock. "Now," she insisted, tugging his sleeve. And against every instinct screaming about his ruined papers, his lost interview, his son's waiting call, he followed. They slipped through the crowd, her pace fast despite the stumble in her step. Around the corner, the noise dimmed. She leaned against a wall, catching her breath, then faced him. "You didn't see anything," she said. He stared. "I just pulled you out from under a truck." "What are you talking about?" "Listen," her voice dropped, almost pleading, "whatever you think happened, you need to forget it. Walk away. Pretend you don't know me." The absurdity made him laugh bitterly. "Forget it? I just risked my life, my interview, everything, because you screamed for help." Her eyes softened for the first time. "And I'll make sure you don't regret it. But right now, silence is your only chance." He opened his mouth, but his phone vibrated violently in his pocket. His son's name lit the cracked screen. His chest tightened. "I have to," he began, but she snatched the phone from his hand before he could answer. "Hey." She scanned the name, her lips tightening, then returned it. "Call him later. For now, you come with me." He froze. Why would I? But then he saw it. Peeking from beneath her coat, a badge clipped to her belt. Not police. Not security. Something heavier. And above it, embossed letters he didn't recognize fully, but enough to understand, she was not just anyone. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Her answer was a whisper, edged with steel. "Someone who can change your life. But only if you keep walking." He hesitated, torn between anger and curiosity. The woman's grip was unrelenting, her pace unshakable. They pushed deeper into the maze of streets until the sound of sirens faded completely. She didn't speak, didn't look back, just moved with purpose. Finally, she stopped at a narrow alley where a black sedan waited with the engine running. The driver, a man in a gray suit, opened the rear door the second she appeared. "Get in," she ordered. He froze. "I'm not going anywhere with you. I've got an interview," his voice cracked with frustration. She turned, eyes sharp. "You already lost it." The words hit him like a punch. He pictured the scattered resumes, the letters soaked in oil. His throat tightened. She must have seen the storm in his face because her tone softened. "Get in. You'll understand soon." Before he could argue, his phone vibrated again. His son's name. He answered this time, voice shaking. "Hey, buddy." "Daddy's." "Dad?" The boy's small voice trembled. "There are people outside the apartment. They're knocking on the door." His heart stopped. "What? Who? Don't open it. Do you hear me?" The woman snatched the phone, pressing it to her ear. "Listen carefully," she said calmly. "Stay away from the door. Stay in your room. Do not answer. We're on our way." She ended the call before he could protest and shoved the phone back into his hand. "What the hell," he began, but she pushed him toward the car. "Get in, or your son is alone with strangers at your door." His stomach twisted. He climbed into the sedan, anger boiling but powerless against fear. The door slammed. The car surged forward. The driver spoke without turning his head. 2 men, 3rd floor, already gone by the time we checked. Likely still nearby. Keep driving, she ordered. Don't take the main roads. He stared at her, disbelief in every line of his face. You knew? You knew something would happen to my kid? She met his glare, unflinching. This isn't about you. You were just in the wrong place at the right time. Her words burned in his ears. Wrong place at the right time? I almost died out there. My kid. He's alive because you found me, she cut in, her voice cold but steady. The car swerved suddenly, horns blaring outside. He clutched the seat, pulse racing. Who are those men? Why my son? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pulled a slim folder from the seat pocket and tossed it onto his lap. His name was printed on the cover. He froze. Inside were pages, his resume, his failed applications, even the letter he had written last week to the utility company begging for an extension on bills. He looked up at her in shock. How do you have this? Her gaze locked on him. Because we've been watching you. The silence in the car grew suffocating. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the only sound was the hum of the engine. Finally, she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Everything you've lost today might be the price of what you're about to gain. But only if you trust me. The sedan sliced through the city, weaving between traffic. His pulse hammered against the window glass as he stared at the folder on his lap. His whole life reduced to papers, debts, rejection letters, even a photo of him carrying his son on his shoulders in the park. He had never seen that photo before. Who had taken it? He looked at her, fury boiling. You've been spying on me. On my kid. Why? What do you want from us? She didn't flinch. Her gaze was locked on the blur of streets outside. It's not about what I want. It's about what's already in motion. In motion, he snapped. I'm a man who can't keep a job, who can't even pay rent. Nothing about me is in motion. For the first time, something like pity flickered across her face. That's what makes you useful. The words chilled him. Useful. As if he were a tool, not a person. He gripped the folder tighter, his throat dry. If you don't start explaining. The car screeched to a halt. The driver muttered, "They're here." Through the window, he saw them, 2 men in dark coats, standing beside a silver van parked across the street. Their eyes locked on the sedan. One of them lifted a phone to his ear. "Keep moving," she ordered, her voice sharp. The driver floored the accelerator, and the sedan shot forward. He was slammed against the seat, clutching the folder like a shield. "Who are they?" he demanded. Her eyes met his. "The reason you can't go home tonight." The word sliced deeper than any explanation. He leaned back, heart pounding. His son, alone in the apartment. His entire body screamed to fight, to run back, but her gaze held him pinned. "You don't understand," he said hoarsely. "My son. He's safer than you think," she interrupted. "We have people watching." "We?" His voice cracked. "Who's we? The police? Government? Some company? Who are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her coat, pulled out a small envelope, and slid it across the seat. "Open it." His fingers shook as he tore it open. Inside was a photograph, not of his son, not of him. A woman. Elegant, powerful-looking, speaking at a podium with banners behind her. He had no idea who she was. But scribbled across the bottom was a date. Today's date. He stared at her. "What does this mean?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. It means you were never supposed to be at that intersection. But since you were, everything changes. His stomach dropped. He wanted to scream at her, shake her, demand answers. But the only thing that escaped his mouth was a whisper, "Why me?" For the first time, she leaned closer, her eyes burning into his. "Because you jumped." The car sped on, leaving the city lights behind. And he realized with sickening clarity, he was already in the middle of something far larger than his own ruined life. The sedan veered off the highway and plunged into a web of narrow industrial streets. The city glow vanished, replaced by warehouses with broken windows and rusting fences. His chest tightened with every turn. "Where are you taking me?" he demanded. "Somewhere safe," she said, but her tone carried no warmth. "Safe?" He laughed bitterly. "I just lost my chance at the only job I had left. Strangers are after my son, and I'm locked in a car with people who won't even tell me their names." "Safe isn't the word I'd use." She didn't reply. The driver slowed near a warehouse with a rolling gate. It rattled open, and the sedan slipped inside. The door slammed shut behind them, sealing away the outside world. He gripped the folder, sweat dampening the edges. Every instinct screamed to run, but his legs felt like stone. The woman stepped out first, gesturing for him to follow. He hesitated. "You want answers?" she asked. "Then walk." Reluctantly, he obeyed. The air smelled of oil and dust. Inside, the warehouse was not empty. Several people moved with quiet urgency, checking screens, sorting files, speaking into radios. None wore uniforms, yet their movements were too precise to be ordinary. He felt their eyes on him. Judging. Measuring. "This is insane," he muttered. One man, tall with sharp features, approached. "So this is him?" His voice carried skepticism. "He's the one who jumped," she answered flatly. The man studied him for a long moment, then smirked. "Doesn't look like much." Heat flared in his chest. "I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask for any of this." "No," the man replied, "but now you're part of it." His fists clenched. "My son, if anything happens to him." "He's fine," the woman cut in, though her eyes flickered with something unspoken. The tall man tossed a sealed envelope onto a nearby table. "Show him." She opened it and slid out several photos. His breath caught. They were surveillance shots of him, walking his son to school, buying groceries, sitting alone at night staring at bills. Another photo, his apartment door, taken from the stairwell. And another, two men in dark coats standing right outside. His knees nearly buckled. "You've been watching us. All of you." "Why?" The woman held his gaze. "Because you were going to be tested. We just didn't know when." "Tested?" His voice cracked. "You think this is some kind of game? My son is scared out of his mind." Her face softened for the briefest second. "I know. But if you walk away now, you'll never understand why this happened. And worse, you'll never be able to protect him from what's coming next." The tall man interrupted, impatient. "He's not ready. He's desperate, broke, hanging by a thread. He'll break." "He won't," she said firmly. The clash between them left him frozen. Break? Protect? Tested? Nothing made sense, and yet the weight of their words pressed on him like chains. Finally, he exploded. "Enough riddles. Tell me what you want from me." Silence. Then the woman stepped closer, her eyes fierce. "What I want is irrelevant. What matters is what you're willing to risk for your son's future." Her words stabbed deeper than any threat. He thought of his boy's voice trembling on the phone, of hungry mornings, of nights spent promising, "Tomorrow will be better." And he knew, whatever this was, he was already in too deep to walk away. But before he could answer, the warehouse lights suddenly cut out. Darkness swallowed them whole. A voice shouted from the far corner, "We've been compromised." And then everything exploded into chaos. Darkness swallowed the warehouse. Shouts erupted, metal clanged, footsteps thundered across the floor. He froze, clutching the folder to his chest as panic surged through him. A hand grabbed his arm. "This way." It was her voice, urgent but controlled. He stumbled after her through the blackness, guided only by her grip. Behind them, voices barked orders. "Seal the exits. Find the breach." A gunshot cracked, the echo bouncing off concrete. He ducked instinctively. They burst through a side door into a narrow hallway dimly lit by emergency lights. She shoved him forward. "Keep moving." His breath came in ragged gasps. "What's happening? Who's after us?" She didn't answer. They turned a corner, and she slammed open another door. It led to a stairwell climbing toward the roof. "Up," she ordered. He hesitated. "The roof? We'll be trapped." Her eyes blazed. "Trust me." They climbed, each step pounding like a drum. His mind swirled with images, his son alone at home, the men outside the apartment, the surveillance photos. And that one photograph in the envelope, the powerful woman at the podium with today's date. It haunted him. When they reached the rooftop, cold night air hit his lungs. City lights flickered in the distance. A helicopter's roar approached from above, blades slicing the sky. "What is this?" he demanded, raising his voice over the noise. "Who is she? The woman in that photo? What does today mean?" The woman's jaw tightened. For the first time, hesitation cracked her composure. "She's not who you think," she said quietly. He stepped closer, desperation in his voice. "Then tell me who she is." The helicopter hovered above them, wind whipping their clothes. A rope ladder dropped down. Two figures leaned out, motioning urgently. "We don't have time," she said, her voice sharp again. "If you want your son safe, if you want answers, you come with me now." He planted his feet, resisting. "No more games." "Who is she? Why was today marked?" The woman's eyes burned into his. For a moment, he thought she would finally tell him. Instead, she leaned close and whispered just 3 words, "She's already waiting." Before he could demand more, she grabbed his wrist and forced him toward the ladder. Gunfire erupted below, bullets sparking against the rooftop edge. The choice vanished, stay and die, or climb and follow her deeper into the unknown. His hands closed around the ladder's ropes, rough against his skin. As the helicopter lifted, he looked down one last time. Shadows swarmed the rooftop, men with weapons flooding through the stairwell. The city shrank beneath him. The wind tore at his face. And all he could think was the image of that woman on the podium, smiling before unseen crowds, with today's date inked beneath. Already waiting. For him. But for what? The helicopter roared through the night, city lights falling away beneath them. He clung to the rope ladder, muscles screaming, the wind burning his face. At last, strong hands pulled him into the cabin. He collapsed onto the floor, gasping, his chest heaving. She climbed in behind him, pulling the hatch shut. Inside, 2 men in headsets sat opposite, eyes cold, scanning the darkness below. No one spoke. The silence was heavier than the roar of the blades. Finally, he sat up, voice hoarse. "I need to call my son." "No phones," one of the men barked. "He's alone." His voice cracked. "He's just a kid, he." The woman's hand landed on his arm. "He's being watched. Protected." Her calm tone only made his fury boil. "By who? By you?" By those people in the warehouse? You call this protection? The man across from him leaned forward. Your boy's safer than you are. That's the only answer you'll get. He wanted to punch him, scream, do anything to break the suffocating cage around him. But instead, he slumped back, helpless. The helicopter banked sharply, and through the window he glimpsed a massive complex below, steel towers, floodlights, security fences. It looked like a fortress hidden on the city's edge. The aircraft landed with a jolt. Doors slid open, floodlights blinding him. Armed guards surrounded them instantly. He stumbled out, clutching the folder still glued to his hand. Move, a guard ordered. They were led through long corridors, walls of concrete and glass. Everywhere, screens glowed with live feeds, city streets, traffic intersections, even schoolyards. He froze when one screen flickered. His son's school. His son's classroom. Stop, he whispered. But the guards shoved him forward. Inside a small room, bare except for a table and 2 chairs, they pushed him down. The woman entered last, closing the door behind her. Tell me the truth, he said, his voice breaking. Are you protecting him, or controlling him? She didn't answer. Instead, she slid another envelope across the table. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside, an acceptance letter. His name, printed in bold. A job offer. Not the one he had interviewed for. Something far bigger. A position inside a corporation he had never applied to. His breath caught. What is this? It's what comes next, she said. He laughed bitterly. Next? I've been running for my life for hours, and now you hand me a job. It's more than a job, she replied. It's a test. And you've already passed the first part. He slammed the folder shut. I never agreed to this. Her eyes softened. You didn't need to. You made your choice the moment you jumped. Silence filled the room. His chest ached with helpless rage. And yet, beneath it, a flicker of something else, a tiny flame of possibility. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine, what if this wasn't just manipulation? What if there was truly a door opening in front of him? But before he could speak, alarms blared through the facility. Red lights flashed. The door burst open, a guard shouting, "They've breached the perimeter." The woman stood instantly. Stay here. But he was already on his feet. Not without answers. Their eyes locked, her calm steel against his desperate fire. Then, without a word, she shoved the acceptance letter into his hand and ran into the chaos. He looked down at it, the paper trembling in his grasp, and felt it for the first time, not just fear, not just anger, but the faint pull of something terrifying and new. Hope. The alarms howled through the complex, red lights slicing the dim halls. Guards sprinted past him, radios crackling. He stood frozen in the doorway of the room, clutching the acceptance letter, his heart thundering. Through the chaos, he caught sight of her at the far end of the corridor, moving fast, issuing orders. For a moment their eyes met, and then she vanished into the storm of uniforms and shadows. He turned in the opposite direction, desperate to find an exit. He needed air. He needed to think. But then his gaze snagged on a wall of screens. Most showed flickering feeds of the perimeter, guards exchanging fire with silhouettes in the dark. But one screen stopped him cold. It was her again, the woman in the photograph. Standing at a podium, live broadcast, banners behind her emblazoned with a corporate logo he'd never seen before. The date in the photo wasn't just today, it was this exact moment. She was speaking now. His throat went dry. He stepped closer, pressing his hand to the glass. Who is she? He whispered. A voice behind him answered. The reason you're here. He spun. The tall man from the warehouse stood there, flanked by 2 guards. His face was grim, but his eyes glinted with something unreadable. "Tell me," the hero demanded. "Tell me who she is." The man smirked faintly. "You already know enough. Knowing more could get you killed faster." "That's not an answer." His fists shook. "What does she have to do with me? With my son?" Instead of replying, the man reached past him and tapped a control. The audio feed from the broadcast filled the air. "Our city stands at a turning point," the woman declared, her voice smooth, commanding. "We cannot allow fear to dictate our future. We must act. We must choose leaders who will protect us from the threats that lurk in the shadows." The words were stirring, powerful, but to him, they sounded rehearsed, dangerous. "Is she a politician? A CEO? What is this?" he demanded. The tall man finally looked at him, expression hard. "She is both. And neither. All you need to understand is this: if she calls your name, your life will never be the same again." His stomach lurched. "My name? Why would she know my name?" But before he could press further, an explosion rocked the building. The screens shattered, sparks flying. Guards shouted, pulling weapons. The tall man shoved him toward the hall. "Move! Now!" Smoke choked the air. Sirens wailed louder, almost deafening. In the confusion, a hand seized his shoulder. It was her again. The woman who had pulled him from the street hours ago. "Come with me," she shouted over the chaos. He coughed, eyes watering. "Who is she?" He pointed at the burning wall of shattered screens. "Tell me." Her face was streaked with dust, her voice raw. "She's the one you're going to meet, if you survive this." And before he could ask another word, she dragged him into the smoke-filled corridor, running toward the unknown. The smoke clawed at his lungs as they stumbled down the corridor. Alarms blared, red lights strobing across broken walls. Every step felt like a race against time. She held his wrist tight, dragging him through the chaos, her grip unyielding. "Where are we going?" he shouted, choking on dust. "To the only place you'll get answers," she snapped. They burst into a stairwell, sprinting upward 2 steps at a time. Gunfire rattled below, the sound echoing up the shaft. He forced his shaking legs to keep pace. Each shot felt like it could end everything before he even learned why he was here. At the top, they shoved through a steel door onto another rooftop. The night air hit like ice. Floodlights swept the horizon, and in the distance he saw the flicker of flames rising from the complex. Helicopters circled like vultures. On the far side of the rooftop stood a sleek black helicopter, its blades already spinning. Guards waved them forward urgently. But just as they crossed the roof, a voice boomed from loudspeakers, deep and commanding. "Stop running. Hand him over." He froze. The voice wasn't random, it carried weight, authority, finality. Whoever was speaking knew exactly who he was. Her grip tightened. "Don't listen. Keep moving." But he couldn't. His chest heaved, his legs rooted. "They know me," he whispered. "Why? Why me?" The loudspeaker continued, calm and cruel, "Your son is safe, for now. But every step you take with her puts him in greater danger. Think carefully, father. Is this the path you want for him?" The words cut deeper than any weapon. His knees almost gave way. "They have my son." She spun to face him, her voice sharp. "No. They want you to believe that. They'll say anything to break you." His head pounded. And what if they're telling the truth? What if he's already in their hands? Her eyes flashed. For the first time, she had no immediate reply. Behind them, guards shouted, pulling him toward the helicopter. Ahead, floodlights swept across the roof as shadows advanced. He stood trapped between 2 worlds, neither offering safety, both demanding trust. The loudspeaker boomed again. You don't know who you're following. She will use you. She will destroy you. Come with us, and your son will live. He turned to her, trembling. Tell me the truth. Who is she? The woman on the podium. The one you keep hiding from me. The helicopter thundered louder, drowning out everything for a moment. She stepped closer, her face inches from his. She's waiting, she whispered. And if you survive tonight, you'll see her with your own eyes. It wasn't an answer. It was another door slammed in his face. Gunfire erupted from below, bullets sparking against the rooftop edge. Guards pulled him toward the aircraft. The loudspeaker repeated his name now, echoing across the night, each syllable twisting his insides. For the first time, his name wasn't just his own. It was a weapon. The helicopter lifted, dragging him into the storm of noise, smoke, and blinding light. He held the acceptance letter crumpled in his fist, his heart split in two, between the son he couldn't reach and the answers he was being dragged toward. And in that moment, with the world collapsing beneath him, he understood only one thing: whatever waited in the final meeting would decide not just his fate, but his child's. The helicopter cut through the night, leaving the burning complex behind. He sat hunched, fingers clawing the crumpled letter, heart pounding in his throat. For hours he had been dragged, chased, manipulated, yet one truth burned brighter than the chaos: tonight, everything would break open. They landed on a rooftop overlooking the city skyline. Floodlights bathed the pad, and a line of dark-suited figures waited. At the center stood the woman from the photograph. She was taller than he'd imagined, posture regal, voice carrying authority as she spoke into a microphone to cameras and an unseen crowd below. Her words rolled like thunder: "We are stronger than fear. Tonight marks a new beginning." His knees almost gave out. She wasn't a stranger on a screen anymore, she was real, a force that made the air itself heavy. The woman who had saved him from the truck stepped closer. "This is it. She wanted to see you." "Why me?" His voice broke. "Why drag me through hell? Why risk my son?" Her eyes softened. "Because the world doesn't change from stages or speeches. It changes when someone ordinary chooses to act when no one else will." "You jumped." The crowd below roared, though he couldn't hear the words. The woman at the podium turned, and her eyes met his. A jolt ran through him. She knew him. Not vaguely, not distantly. She knew him. She stepped off the stage, the sea of guards parting. Up close, her presence was overwhelming, but her tone was calm. "You're wondering why you're here." He nodded, unable to speak. "You weren't supposed to be in that intersection. But fate isn't neat. You saved me when no one else moved. That moment told me everything. You don't calculate, you don't wait, you act." His breath caught. "That was you, under the truck." She smiled faintly. "Yes. And because of that, I know what kind of man you are." His mind reeled. "And my son? The people at my door?" Her expression hardened. "They were never after him. They were after me. Your boy was bait to draw you out, proof that you could be pushed, tested. He is safe. He was always watched, always guarded." Tears blurred his vision. Relief crashed through him, mingled with rage. "You used him. You tore my life apart." She didn't flinch. "Yes. And I won't apologize. Because what I'm offering you now is more than a job, more than survival. I'm offering you a future, for him, for you, for countless others who never get a chance." She handed him a folder, heavier than the first. Inside, an official contract, his name at the top, a position not as an employee, but as a partner in her company, an organization aiming to dismantle the very forces that had hunted them tonight. His hands trembled. "Why me? I'm nobody. Her gaze pierced him. That's why. Because leaders born with everything forget what it's like to have nothing. You haven't forgotten. You've lived it. And now, you'll use it. For a moment, silence wrapped around them. The city stretched endless below, the roar of the crowd rising. He thought of his son, small, fragile, depending on him. He thought of empty cupboards, rejection letters, the crushing weight of failure. And he thought of this, a door opening, one he had never dared dream of. His voice was low, steady. If I do this, my son will never know the hunger I've known. She placed a hand on his shoulder. If you do this, he'll grow up knowing his father fought for something bigger than himself. The choice stood before him like a chasm. And then, with a breath that felt like stepping into fire, he nodded. The woman smiled, not triumphant, but resolute. Welcome. Tomorrow begins with you. The crowd erupted, lights flashing, cameras blinding. He stood there, no longer the man clutching resumes in the rain, no longer the father begging for mercy from landlords and creditors. He was something else now, shaped by fear, broken by struggle, but remade in fire. And as he lifted his eyes to the night sky, he realized the truth: success was never the job, the money, or even safety. It was the courage to leap when the world stood frozen. He had leapt. And because of that, everything was about to change.